Hi, I'm Ranveer Vasdev. I am the class 2022 AAMC OSR rep.
I'm Kevin Gale. I'm the class president for 2022.
And I'm Nuwan Pathagamage, and I'm one of the class reps for the MS2 year.
So ourselves and some other medical students from Student Council conducted a preliminary survey on the use and some of the rationale for using third-party resources in the second year class. So the purpose of why we conducted this survey was really just to get some background knowledge on what our MS2 is using. We would love to share this data with the curriculum team. We also wanted to understand the rationale or the motivation behind students for using third-party resources. And finally, we aim to encourage the integration of third-party resources into our current curriculum.
So getting into some of our data with regards to Pathoma, we found that 96% of respondents use Pathoma at some point during their MS2 year. We also found that of these people who use Pathoma, 66% use it as a primary learning resource for pathology.
And before we move on, what primary resource means that they are learning the pathology material first and foremost from Pathoma. Mm-hmm. We use primary resources a few times in this presentation. Primary resource is your go-to resource for learning the material.
Additionally, we found that of those who responded, 98% would recommend Pathoma to an incoming MS1. I think this data is very, very representative of how much students are using it and how important Pathoma is. We also found that 91% of respondents would like to have Pathoma integrated into the curriculum. And in contrast to this, next slide, we found that of the recommended textbook, which is Robbins, 87% of respondents didn't look at Robbins one time.
There are a lot of different resources that second year students use to study, and we wanted to investigate the prevalence, or the use of this broad spectrum amongst our class. Of note, Pathoma, Sketchy Micro, First Aid, and Sketchy Farm were used by the vast majority of classmates, with Boards and Beyond and Zonky, which are two USMLE Step 1 prep decks, follow closely behind them. Of the students who use Sketchy Micro, interestingly, 65% of these students use Sketchy Micro as a primary learning resource, and this was over the course of our microbiology course during our first year, as well as into the HHD blocks during our second year. Similarly, when of the students who used Sketchy Farm, 56% of these students used it as a primary resource. And again, this was over the course of our Introduction to Pharmacology lectures during the summer semester and into the HHD blocks.
Now, that's all the hard data and the numbers. We will send that out in email form so you can look over that data, look over those numbers again. Interestingly, we had a free response comment section, and we saw a couple of major themes in this comment section. One of the first themes we saw was organization of third-party resources. And here's a representing quote. The lectures in these outside materials are concise, thorough, and well executed. There is minimal time wasted on repetition of things presented elsewhere. There is minimal disagreement between sources regarding correct information, and they are well organized. One big challenge of using course materials is that they are often poorly organized and nonlinear. The material jumps from place to place without a clear roadmap. The quality of slides is highly variable from lecture to lecture. This is not the case with third-party resources. And I think this is important because students aren't turning to third-party resources because they want to do well on STEP. They're STEP-oriented. No, they're turning to third-party resources because it has better organization. And we can talk about this a little bit more. Kevin Wickman, for organization, Kevin Wickman was cited in this survey many times because he had clear organization of material. Additionally, he was the one lecturer for Intro to Pharmacology, so he knew exactly what he was lecturing on throughout the entire summer, and that goes to part of the organization. Third-party resources often only have one professor teaching everything, one person teaching everything. Moving on, we found another theme of the comments section was efficacy, representing, quote, I think a big part of what makes the outside resources so effective is that they explain foundational concepts and connections that many lecturers don't include. Lecturers often forget who they are teaching to, and often forget that sometimes we may not even know what a basic word means or where it comes from. Whereas Pathoma and Boards and Beyond explain and put those things together for us in a much more concise and efficient manner. Again, students aren't turning to third-party resources because of just STEP scores. They got to do well in STEP. No, they're turning to third-party resources because it's easier to understand the material. That's the organization and efficacy that students are looking for. Another theme we saw in the comments section was the value of medical education, representing, quote, money. Outside of clinical experiences, I've spent about $1,000 to teach myself the first 2 years of medical school faster, more efficiently, and with STEP-relevant material. Now, importantly, outside of clinical experiences, students appreciate POCC, case studies. We appreciate working with patients. Those are clinical experiences that third-party resources can't duplicate. But when it comes to the hard sciences, the value of medical education, the third-party resources are much more cheap. Finally, the theme we saw was integration. Pathoma and Sketchy are incredible resources, just like our professors. Using these outside resources in classes would help reaffirm that they are as high yield as people say, while also giving professors a chance to supplement information. So it's important, students don't want the curriculum to be replaced with third-party resources. They want integration. So those were the four themes we saw: organization, efficacy, cost, and integration. Mm-hmm. So finally, we have all this data. We have some themes in the comments section. The next steps would be to get more data. An additional rigorous survey would be distributed to M2 students during the spring semester, and again, following completion of USMLE Step 1. We would like the curriculum team to be collecting more data with first years, third years, us, etc. Right now, the correct questions aren't being asked. These need to be incorporated in any surveys going forward. And as representatives of the Student Council, we want to work with the curriculum team. Student Council, course leads, the three of us, we want to work with the curriculum team to improve medical education at the UMN. So thanks for listening, and you will see the data in written format in an email shortly.